So, yeah, I keep that in the word. I have to really ban the word so, because I start off using that all the time. I was playing with the grandmother today and just listening to the sound that was currently set up, and I thought, okay, I probably haven't done a sort of beginner's guide to listening, because certainly when I was a teenager, I listened to a lot of the synthesizer stuff in the 70s, and I would try to work out how those sort of sounds were made based on the sort of basic analog ideas of oscillators, waveforms, filters, ring modulators, envelope generators, even though I didn't have any of those. I made a few simple circuits, but I did try to sort of guess how sounds would be made. And so I've set up this initial video with basically nothing sounding, though it is actually, if you listen carefully, you can hear that the springline reverb, which is a device inside the unit here, is actually being fed to the output. So you can look up what a springline reverb unit does and how it provides some sort of reverb. That's what it's called, springline reverb, because it provides reverberation. So sound goes through it and then reflections come back up and down multiple times, and you get a classic sound. So let's do a quick go by a few controls and tell you what you're hearing. So the first thing is I'm just going to turn up oscillator 1. So oscillator 1 is a triangular wave. So if you listen carefully, you can still hear the reverb providing a bit of ambience. And part of that is because the reverb unit itself has its own resonant frequencies, which it accentuates. So that's oscillator 1. Turn that back down to 0. Turn oscillator 2 up. So that's using a square wave. And there's slight modulation there. So where's that coming from? And it turns out that modulation you can hear there is coming because I've got the sequence, so the arpeggiator turn was enabled. So is there modulation there? I can't, maybe. It doesn't seem to change with the telepo rate, with the clock rate. If I turn that back on again, noticeable with that oscillator. For some reason, it's just not as noticeable with the oscillator 1. Now we can use let's play with turn the noise up. And you hear a slight sound. Hear that? So that is basically the filter doing something. So again, if you listen to that, you can hear that there. It's more noticeable with noise, and we can turn the resonance up. It's more obvious. So that was going on as well with all these other sounds. Though with the oscillators, It's not so obvious because it's because of the harmonic content. So if we turn up both oscillators, you can now hear. You can hear another effect where the two oscillators basically are very slightly out of tune. We have what's called a beat frequency. And that's purely because the two oscillators are not quite the same frequency. So as the waveforms sort of drift past each other, sometimes they cancel out, or a little bit, or a lot. And so that causes a volume change. Given this as analog circuitry, there is very subtle variations in how the components stuff out. So you get to do that. So that's again that's two oscillators beating, providing it some extra texture there. So that's the sort of things you have to listen to when you listen to a synth voice. Now, of course, if it's playing really fast, you can't really hear that potentially. So the sort of subtleties are lost with when it's a piece playing fast. But when you have long ambient sounds in the background, you can hear that. Now, also you can do the same thing on digital. So it's very similar, but it's obviously done with a digital environment. So they can emulate some of the warm analog sounds. What am I changing? Obviously not what I think I'm changing. Because I can't go backwards on that one. So if you listen to this one, you hear. So that's basically a filter sweep sound going up and coming down slower. So here on the Moog, you could on the Grandmother. How do you do that? So you need a. Harsh attack and a bit of a decay. tune it up later. So anyway, so you can try, by listening, you can then try to work out how to create different sounds using the controls on the system that the synthesizer that you have. So today's jacket is the Les Paul Foundation. Les Paul obviously was a very pioneer in electric guitars, solid body, but also he sort of basically did a lot of early multi-track inventions and things like that. And so Les Paul is one of the major inventors of technology in the early music, electronic music. Similar to Bob Moog, who did the synthesizer, Les Paul was doing tape, multi-track, solid body electric guitar, and those sort of things. He was also a musician and had popular records with his significant other, Mary Ford. And I remember having a 78 wind-up gramophone, and my father had lots of Les Paul records. So I grew up with the Les Paul stuff, and yes, it's nice to be able to support the Les Paul Foundation.